Hey, what's up, guys? Ash here, Nation 1033. Today we are going over fleet formations. This is a pretty requested video, so I figured I'd finally get around to it. Two things before we start. One, this is based on an LRA setup only. This is not meant for mid build or a melee build. They have completely different formations. I'll go over those in a separate video. And then two, this is for cross nation only, because for the most part, 1033 is at peace, knock on wood, no civil war, right? And what that means is that I'm not going to be taking into account in nation. It will be cross nation only. And if you guys are curious, there's a lot of bonuses that go into cross nation fleet size, right? So, like an example, the seafood restaurant at level 6 will increase the max limit of fleet troops in cross nation battle, right? Or, if you go to your officers and you happen to have 6-star officers, I have Major Morgan here and he's got increased max limit of fleet troops in cross nation battle. Now, he also has increased max limit of fleet troops, period. So this affects all combat at all fights, right? But it's a lot less. And then the cross nation, fleets only affect cross nation combat, but the majority of stuff by the time you guys are, within a, I don't know, let's say at least a year into the game or so, will be basically all cross nation unless you have horrible, horrible civil war. Yeah. So, I'm going to do this from the perspective of the uranium mines because it's just easier. So, for example, we'll go into the first one. So my first fleet is fleet number 1, which is Uranium Mines. This is unbuffed, right? So no troop expansion. And this is, I use it often enough to where it makes it useful, right? So I'm at 330,000 troops. Of course, max zombies for this. This should be like, a very well-designed army. You guys will be using this all the time, essentially. So for me, I am C36. I'm just shy of C37, where you would have T12 shredders, right? So I'm using T11 tanks as my primary tank, or yeah, primary front row. And then roughly, give or take, about 1% of whatever your army should be. I'm just using 2,500 here, but it should be about 3,300 or so. I wouldn't get too hung up on that. Make sure you have all 4 different types. I have a mid row, all 4 different types, only 2,500 units each. And then on the back row, I have cannons, which is my primary damage dealer, right? T11, and those are hard to go wrong with. I am almost to T12 snipers, but for right now, just T10, 2,500, and then EMP 250, which comes out to 2,500, right? I don't actually have any shielders, only because I'm kind of low on them at the moment, and I obviously should get my workshop up, but I really didn't want to go from C30 to C35 workshop just for T11 shielders. That's too much uranium. I'm holding off on that till C38 for T12 EMPs. Yeah, so that's fleet 1, and I use that all the time. That's unbuffed, uranium mines. That's the main purpose of it. Second fleet is fleet 2, which is your standard TA. This is 1198, as it's most commonly known as, and I do not bring all of my zombies. In fact, I bring my 1 and lowest tier of zombie. This is intended for taking hits, at the front and the mid, and living just long enough to kill the enemy force. And I only use this on weak to medium players in proportion to me, right? So on the front row, 1 of each. Middle row, 1 of each, which I am missing a Havoc Trooper for some reason. Hold on 1 second. I don't know what happened there. I'm sure it had something to do with Frenzy or Void. So 1 front row, 1 mid row, and then in the back row I have, this is a little bit different than what other people will use. So I have 200,000 worth of units of cannons, T11 cannons, which is no surprise. But then I also go into snipers and EMPs. Why? Because when you have multiple types of units attacking, you can get a battle over really quickly. In my opinion, like a standard TA fleet, you don't want an extended fight, right? Because your front row is going to disappear real fast, your middle row is going to disappear real fast, and all you want to be able to do is delete the enemy as fast as humanly possible. If I were to put, like 80,000 or whatever into cannons, they can still only hit one unit at a time. This essentially gives me like 13-second battles as I keep them split. And again, if I did actually have some shielders, I might incorporate them, but I'm really low on them and I don't really want to build them right now. So yeah. So that's Fleet 2, standard TA. Fleet 3 is when we get into buffed. So I'm going to go ahead and buff. We have some events going on later. I'm going to go ahead and use the 8-hour expansion. And important to note, this is just troop expansion. This is not with fast expansion. Just totally different. So from here, Fleet 3 for me is my defensive fleet buffed. And so I have max zombies. The main difference is that this is messed up too, probably from Frenzy. So let's go ahead and mess with this so that you guys can see how it would normally look. So I will do 2500, 250, 1250, and then 2500, 500 Storm Raiders because they're 5 units each, right? And this is about what it would look like. And we can finish out the remainder in cannons, which is, what is that? 30,000 divided by 5, 6. 5,000 divided by 5 is 1,000. Perfect. Okay. So, sorry that this wasn't, I should have checked all these formations before I actually did this video. Oops. So defensive fleet, why? What's the difference? Well, infantry are actually the best defensive units in the game. If you're curious, you can look at, let's say, a T10 Shredder, right? Their skill never changes. So when battling, a damage reduction is triggered every 8 seconds. Damage taken is reduced by 34% for 4 seconds, or 50% of the time, right? So 34% reduction for 4 seconds. Or you could do infantry home guard in defensive battles only, right? So you guys should not be using this on attacking. A damage reduction is triggered every 8 seconds, same as shredders. Damage taken is reduced by 50% for 4 seconds, or reduced by 50% for 50% of the time. They have the strongest defensive buff in the game by far. And, eventually, like to get the T13 infantry, and they are they are essentially the strongest tanking units in the game if used correctly. A lot of people won't do a defensive fleet, but I'm a bit more technical and I prefer it that way. So yeah, so pretty heavy front row. I would say this is about, what is that? 1/3. Yeah, about 1/3. So 33% of my units go into infantry. Middle row, again, 1%-ish, right? And then back row, for me, would be cannons. And then on the flip side, Fleet 4 is attack formation buffed. So the only difference between the two of these really is that the front row, instead of the infantry, is converted to tanks. And tanks make excellent attacking units, and so do shredders. Armored soldiers actually have a completely separate use, and I'll go over that at a different time for a different video. But so I primarily use T11 tanks for attacking. You can switch this to 125,000 like it was from the infantry. I've got a bit more cannons in this setup. I would say that this is also your SOS fleet, right? And your slaughter and your panda and stuff, right? So if you're going in KE or if you're going into Void, this should be like your main fleet where you're bringing, like the whole army as well designed of an army as you can possibly have. Now, I will say that if you don't have a lot of melee hip, right? I'm at like 700 or so, with around 900 LRA, give or take. Um, if you're like 100 melee hip and 400 long range, you might want to just do pure long range. Um, but at some point in the game, you're going to fight a monster that has a front row that you can't even beat. You literally can't beat. And part of that is that, yeah, his stats are dumb, right? Like ridiculous, stupid. But part of that is also he's invested into a front row. And having a good front row is unbelievable because that means your back row just gets to go ham without most worry, with the exception of zombies special ability and, rockets from mid row, stuff like that. So yeah, so this is fleet 4. This is probably my most used fleet, right? Most events are cross nation, so Iron Blood, Polar, Void, Frenzy. I don't know, take your pick. I use this the most, and I think I've leaned more towards more cannons on this one, but yeah, this is probably the number one fleet that you guys will use 99% of the time. Full zombies and all that stuff. So, all right, fleet 5. This is for Mutant Ghoul, and it's similar to your standard TA. So one at the front, right? One in the middle, and then in the back row, I do one of each, with the exception of right there. Oh, I'm missing some units here. That's weird. Oh, I'm missing it by quite a bit. Hold on. This is going to be 4,000 divided by 5, which is 800. 76,449. No, that is not right at all. Well, anyway, let me fix this for you guys. Yeah, I jacked up the whole thing. 1 second. And there we go. You gotta love how it just keeps taking, and I don't want to lock everything and go through that whole rigmarole. All right, so that's about what the Mutant Ghoul formation is. How is this different from the standard TA? Well, it has zombies. Because zombies you can add into your fleet. In a standard TA formation, you're looking to kill without losing too much, right? So that the zombie just dies and he protects the back row for just long enough, right? But in Mutant Ghoul, you're going for max damage, right? So I think I can actually show you what my Mutant Ghoul would be with a battle report. No, it just gives the number. I thought you could check the actual fight itself. But yeah, you guys get the idea in the sense that it's essentially a standard TA formation, but with zombies. Also, highest damaging unit, right? So with my standard TA, I prefer to have 3 or 4 different types of units in the back row hitting at the same time because you're trying to get in and out as fast as possible, right? But with Mutant Ghoul, you want pure damage. So, Doomsday Cannon. Oh, you know what? I know why this is jacked up. So normally, normally I do Mutant Ghoul with fast expansion on and troop buff, and it's assuming I would have normally 400,000 or whatever my fully buffed fleet would be. Right. Fleet 6. This is actually open. So this is an open fleet. This is something you guys can just use to change on a whim. You guys can see my stuff is all jacked up here. I'm guessing this is from Frenzy. Because if you fight enough in Frenzy, you're not going to have perfectly clean. You're going to lose zombies. They're going to die, right? So, if you see something like this, yeah, that's a Frenzy fight. And the thing is let's say let's say in Frenzy, just as an example, right? You go into this and you lose 3 or 4 fights with this T11 zombies, right? Well, guess what? If you click on this again, it's going to have this, and you're going to bring no zombies to the next fight. So sometimes when I start getting low, I might do this for my team and then save it. And then when, if those die, then, I'll do this and then save it. So and you can see that it's kind of a hodgepodge, and you can do whatever you want with this. But I like having at least one open fleet for me to customize on the fly. Um, Interesting note: you guys can use this in Polar the very first 5 minutes, and you can go to troop management over here, fleet army, and you can set up your T13 troops before Polar starts. So, an example, you could do something similar to my Fleet 5, where, it's just one unit and then a ton of cannons, where you're kind of, heavy back row, or however the heck you guys want to do it. Um, and then finally, my last fleet is actually usually one bike. I don't know what that one zombie is doing there. 1 second, sorry. So this is just one bike. Why one bike? One, bikes are the fastest units in the game, with a movement speed of 15, and this is intended for taking towers. So think like global conquest. There's a lot of deception you can do with one bike. For example, I'm somewhat powerful, right? I'm not like ridiculously powerful, but I'm pretty powerful. So if I send one bike and my unit is hidden by, a troop ability, like a decoration, all they see is that a C-36 is sending troops to a tower. And for where I'm at, they might be like, oh God, we need to reinforce this tower, without actually checking. You can, one, have players accidentally send stuff using this. Two, when you capture something, with the exception of the frenzy towers, one unit counts as many points as a million units, right? So this is really good to have, and just to keep people on their toes. I will generally send out multiple fleets whenever I'm in a cross nation battle, and this is one of my favorite things to do, for not just misdirection but also to grab as fast as possible. So um, I recommend this probably more from a strategic point of view. And like, even if you guys, especially if you guys are like close to Civil War or something like that, I'll do maybe like one bike at Perpetual City for us, or one bike at Capital or Tower. And if they kill it, great, they kill it. You got one bike. But then I know, oh, we're here to fight. Okay, and then I'll send my main fleet to go and destroy them. So there's so many uses to having just a quick one bike setup. I'll probably have to do like a video on that sometime, 'cause there's so much you can do with just one bike. It's unbelievable. Anyway, yeah, that's it for formation, guys. Hopefully this makes sense. And if you have any questions, of course, leave it down in the comments. Um, yeah, so if you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and until next time.